Hey guys, tonight we're traveling back to the glory days of junk food, before there were ingredient labels, expiration dates, or any laws against using uranium as a food dye. We're talking about the early 1900s, the golden age of snacks, so experimental, they made your digestive system take out life insurance. This was an era when people thought radium was a vitamin. Coca-Cola contained enough cocaine to make you finish the great American novel in one sitting, and a healthy breakfast might involve lard, sawdust, and a questionable amount of formaldehyde. Ever wondered what it felt like to play Russian roulette with your lunch? Welcome to Snack Time, 1907. So before you settle in, take a moment to like and subscribe, but only if you actually enjoy what I do here. Leave a comment telling me where you are listening from and what time it is for you. Now, dim your lights, crank up that fan for some white noise. Trust me, you'll want a breeze for tonight's gastrointestinal journey. And get comfortable. Let's get curious for a second. Have you ever worried your favorite snack would fight back? Would you survive a Twinkie from 1912? What exactly is a meat glue sandwich? And why did people willingly eat something called bloaters? Could you handle a soda that glows in the dark? Would your modern gut survive one day at a 1900s candy counter? Or would you beg for kale by lunchtime? And now, congratulations. You've just woken up at 1906. The Food and Drug Act hasn't even passed yet. There's no FDA, no ingredient list, and your neighbor is selling cough syrup with more opium than your pharmacy. Good luck. Your dinner might literally try to kill you. It's morning, and you're sitting down to a wholesome plate of milk bread. Only the milk is chalk. The bread is padded out with sawdust, and everything smells faintly of formaldehyde. Why? Because preservatives are new, regulations are non-existent, and apparently nothing says balanced breakfast like eating a lumberyard's worth of fiber. The year is 1903. Sunlight creeps through the soot-stained windows of your tiny kitchen. The air is brisk, your slippers are cold, and breakfast, at least on paper, should be the highlight of your day. The table is set with thick slices of bakery bread, a pitcher of fresh milk, and a dish of something resembling jam. But if you look closer, the meal before you is less a feast and more a crime scene from a chemistry textbook. Let's start with the bread. In the early 1900s, bakers are under enormous pressure to churn out loaves that are whiter, fluffier, and cheaper than ever. Wheat flour is pricey, so they stretch it with whatever's handy: rice flour, potato starch, or, if the miller is especially creative, a hearty scoop of sawdust. That's right, actual wood pulp. If you ever wondered what it feels like to eat a bookshelf, congratulations. With every bite, you experience the culinary equivalent of sandpaper. The good news? Fiber for days. The bad news? Your molars may never forgive you, but the wizardry doesn't end there. Bread should be white, right? Enter chalk and plaster of Paris, stirred in to brighten each slice. The result is a loaf that never goes stale, never molds, and never, ever resembles food made by nature. Your body becomes a construction site, processing more building materials than your neighbor's hardware store. And then there's the fat. Butter is a luxury for the wealthy, so most families spread lard. A pale, slippery concoction with the consistency of ointment on everything. If you're feeling fancy, you might have improved lard, a product boosted by the latest chemistry. A little borax for texture, maybe some coal tar dye for color. It's creamy, it's spreadable, and it's an edible testament to just how far you'll go to save a nickel. Now, the milk. Pasteurization is still an experimental idea, and raw milk is the norm. But to keep it from turning sour before breakfast, a generous dash of formaldehyde or salicylic acid is added, purely in the interest of freshness. You pour it over your cereal, likely made of something with a name like Health Flakes, which we both know means burnt bran and creative optimism, and watch as the milk holds its shape. That's not just viscosity. That's science, baby. Preservatives are everywhere because no one wants to throw out good food, or at least food that looks good. Formaldehyde is the star player, turning dairy and bread into time capsules. Some brands even boast about it. Stays fresh for weeks, the ad says, right above the disclaimer in fine print. Not liable for internal pickling. It's all about shelf life, not actual life. Jams and spreads aren't much better. Strawberry preserves might taste faintly of berries, but more likely of coal tar flavoring, beet syrup, and a faint whiff of yesterday's chemical innovation. The color is radiant, neon red from aniline dye, and the sweetness so overwhelming that your tongue forgets what fruit even tastes like. And yet, this is breakfast, and you eat it gratefully. Because, as everyone knows, a full stomach is the first step towards surviving a day of 1900s living. Your digestive system will handle the rest. Or at least, give it a valiant try. There's a certain optimism at the table. If the bread doesn't kill you, maybe it'll make you stronger. If the milk is suspiciously fresh, just enjoy the miracle. If the jam glows in the dark, well, at least you'll always find your way back to the kitchen. So as you finish your morning meal, give a quiet nod to the mad scientists who made it possible. And tonight, when you drift off to sleep, be grateful for breakfast foods that aren't shelf-stable for centuries. May your dreams be chalk-free, your bread soft, and your morning routine blessedly lacking in construction materials. Welcome to the cereal aisle, a place where Dr. Kellogg and his rivals are in an arms race to out-fiber each other. Bran flakes are sold as a cure for lust, and the only thing more questionable than the taste is the ingredient list, which includes everything from burnt animal bones to coal tar for color. Rise and shine. It's breakfast time, 1903. You shuffle into your kitchen, eyes barely open, and stare at a shelf lined with boxes that promise moral purity, good digestion, and maybe a passing chance at immortality. Eat pure, live clean, says one. For healthy bowels and healthier souls, says another. If you thought cereal was just for kids, think again. In the 1900s, it's a religion, a medical treatment, and, if you believe the marketing, a one-way ticket to a life without sin or indigestion. Let's talk about the key ingredient, fear. You're living in an era where doctors and preachers warn that spicy food will turn you into a criminal. Meat makes you violent, and eggs might inflame your passions. The answer to all of this? A bowl of tasteless grey flakes so fibrous that chewing them feels like eating a recycled phone book. Congratulations. You've survived another morning with your dignity, if not your molars, intact. Your options are grim. There's Dr. Kellogg's original toasted corn flakes, a product that, according to its inventor, will keep you regular, make you virtuous, and, as a side effect, crush any unseemly desires you might have about your neighbor. It's not just food. It's a full-body mood suppressant. And don't get too excited by the toasted part. In 1903, toasted just means lightly singed and possibly still damp. Pour on some milk, which is itself a biological experiment, and watch as your breakfast slowly dissolves into a beige swamp. Let's be honest. You're not eating cereal because it tastes good. You're eating it because everyone keeps telling you it will save your soul, and maybe your marriage. This is the era when the breakfast table is ground zero for self-improvement. There are pamphlets in the cereal boxes about temperance, discipline, and how eating wheat germ will prevent you from ever needing to visit a doctor, priest, or divorce lawyer. There's even a brief moment where a new cereal called granular, not to be confused with granola, makes its debut, a product so hard it has to be soaked overnight and eaten with a hammer. But there's a dark side to this unregulated paradise. With no FDA yet, every cereal company is free to add, well, just about anything. Want a little extra crunch? Toss in some ground oyster shells. Want a more appetizing color? Coal tar does the trick, and if your urine glows for a week, that's just a bonus. Ingredient lists, when they exist, are vague. Healthful minerals, digestive aids, and secret botanical extracts are code for stuff we swept up after closing. And don't forget the advertising. Newspaper ads shout about cereal's ability to cure everything from chronic fatigue to excess enthusiasm. Doctors in dubious white coats declare, "Let bran be your breakfast." And nobody blinks at the claim that flaked wheat will make you a better citizen. There's a constant, low-grade moral panic about toast, pancakes, and anything fun. Cereal is the only thing standing between you and social collapse. No pressure. Still, there's something oddly comforting about it all. As you chew your fourth bite, jaw cramping from effort, you can almost believe you're part of a great experiment in human purity. The cereal is flavorless, the milk is sketchy, and the morning is strangely quiet. You've survived another breakfast in the glorious age of unregulated cereal, where the only thing more regular than your digestive system is the certainty that you'll never look at bran the same way again. And, if you make it to lunch, try not to think about the fact that you're mostly made of fiber, coal, tar, and regret. Welcome to the 1900s. Good luck. You crack open an icy, refreshing Coca-Cola, now with a lively dose of cocaine and a dash of nerve tonic. It's the only beverage that guarantees you'll finish your chores, your neighbor's chores, and repaint the house by noon. The real secret ingredient? Historical denial. It's early morning 1902. Your kitchen is a small miracle of modern inconvenience. An icebox full of melting hope, and a shelf stacked with elixirs that all seem to promise eternal youth, or at least a brief, jittery reprieve from your own mortality. Breakfast has just tried to kill you with fiber, so naturally, you need a drink that will slap your senses back into action. Enter the original Coca-Cola. This is not the soda you know and love. This is the breakfast beverage of choice for anyone who wants to feel, just for a moment, like they have the energy of a Victorian child on roller skates. You reach for a thick green glass bottle, chilled, and pop the cap with a satisfying hiss. Instantly, you're greeted by a sweet, spicy scent, a heady blend of caramel, cola nuts, and whatever else the pharmacist could scrounge up after hours. There's a whiff of mystery. Also, a little something extra. That's not just pep, that's cocaine. Yes, real pharmaceutical-grade cocaine. Because in 1902, nothing says good morning like a product that can legally be bought by anyone with a nickel and a thirst for chaos. You take a sip. The flavor is bold, syrupy, and medicinal. There's a sharp buzz, a tingle on your tongue, and suddenly you can see through time. You are ready to alphabetize your neighbor's pantry, solve the national debt, and then go for a brisk jog around the block. 10 times. You are vibrating gently. It's fine. Let's talk about the label. Coca-Cola, the intellectual beverage. Sold at every soda fountain, prescribed by doctors for headaches, fatigue, and general ennui. Moms buy it for their kids, shopkeepers drink it for their nerves, and absolutely no one is concerned that the main ingredient is also sold in little glass vials down the street, at the pharmacy, right next to the heroin cough syrup. It's a magical time. Why is there cocaine in your breakfast drink? Because John Pemberton, the original inventor, wanted to create a tonic to help nervous exhaustion, hysteria, and the kind of headaches you get after being alive in 1902. The recipe calls for coca leaves, which have been used by Andean cultures for centuries. But unlike in the mountains of Peru, this is not a gentle pick-me-up. This is a beverage designed by people who believed moderation was for cowards. You drink one, you feel great. You drink two, you begin composing your own opera in the pantry. There's a reason this stuff was sold in pharmacies and advertised as a health drink. Coca-Cola is said to cure indigestion, headaches, and the blues. It's also a solution to the era's favorite social problem: fatigue. No one has invented coffee breaks yet, so you just drink another glass of Coke and try not to blink too fast at your boss. And yes, children drink it. In fact, everyone drinks it. School teachers, factory workers, and especially your great-grandfather, who still swears it's the secret to his long life and suspiciously twitchy mustache. There are no warning labels. There are no age restrictions. There are just smiling advertisements featuring cherubic kids clutching a bottle the size of their own head, blissfully unaware that their afternoon treat could land them in the Olympics. But there's a catch. As you pour your second glass and begin cleaning the windows at record speed, a wave of innovation sweeps America. People start to wonder if maybe, just maybe, their kids shouldn't be doing math homework at 2 a.m. and organizing sock drawers with military precision. Scientists ask questions. Reformers campaign. By the 1910s, the cocaine content is quietly reduced, replaced by caffeine, a stimulant that sounds less scandalous but still explains a lot about your great-aunt's legendary card game stamina. You, however, are living in the golden age. Breakfast is a bowl of bran and a tall glass of legal energy. You are bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, and possibly hallucinating. Modern life seems easy by comparison. These days, the only thing your cola might do is keep you up past midnight, not teach you how to tap dance and build a shed before lunch. So next time you take a sip of today's Coke, raise a glass to the original recipe, history's most enthusiastic breakfast beverage, and maybe don't ask too many questions about natural flavors. Sleep tight. You stop by the local pharmacy for a treat and grab a handful of radium-laced candies. They're marketed as invigorating and health-giving, and they literally glow in the dark. Kids love them, parents approve, and the family dentist just bought a yacht. It's the 1910, and you have a sweet tooth. But in this era, candy isn't just about sugar. It's about danger, drama, and a distinct possibility of minor radiation burns. You step into the corner drugstore, greeted by rows of glass jars, each one brimming with electric colors that would make a modern nutritionist faint. There's green, there's blue, there's a color you don't even have a name for, but it reminds you of something you once saw in a lightning storm. The shopkeeper, in a crisp white coat and possibly a lead apron, scoops out a few radium chocolates and radiant lollies, slipping them into a paper bag. You ask what makes them glow so brightly, and he winks. A little scientific marvel, guaranteed to boost your vitality. No mention of side effects, but you notice his moustache is falling out in an oddly symmetrical way. You pop one in your mouth. The flavor is unexpected. There's the usual sugary rush, quickly followed by a metallic tingle and the faint, haunting suspicion that your tongue is trying to light up your tonsils. Still, you feel powerful, energetic. A little bit like you could start a new sport called nighttime tag, no lantern required, and that's the point. Because at the turn of the century, the wonders of science have collided with the magic of marketing, and radium is everywhere. Why radium? Because it's new, it's exciting, and for a brief, shining moment in history, everyone believes it's a health food. Discovered only a decade earlier by Marie and Pierre Curie, radium is hailed as a miracle element. The newspapers call it the sun in a bottle. Doctors prescribe it for everything: fatigue, anemia, and faint-heartedness. A little bit in your candy, your toothpaste, even your butter. What could go wrong? After all, it glows, and everyone knows the brighter your food, the better it must be. You aren't alone in your radioactive snacking. Children trade glowing jawbreakers in schoolyards. Teens show off their electric breath by crunching radium mints in the dark. Grandmothers swear by their daily radium caramel for pep and vim. At parties, parents hand out neon sweets and marvel at the tiny sparkles clinging to their kids' lips. Modern science fairs wish they had this level of spectacle. What about safety, please? This is a time before warning labels, before long-term effects even enter the vocabulary. The logic is, If a little radium gives you energy, then a lot must give you superpowers. There are even health resorts that offer radium water and spa treatments, promising eternal youth, assuming you survive the experience. Of course, not all signs are good. The family dentist is seeing a boom in business, quite literally, since the glowing residue is slowly eating its way through everyone's enamel. At night, you notice your teeth look faintly ghostly in the mirror. Your parents joke it's a great way to keep track of you after dark. But the neighbor's cat has started hissing every time you smile. Still, the thrill is hard to resist. Candy companies slap the word radium on anything they can. Biscuits, fudge, lemonade powder. Radium bread, the toast of the future, promises one ad. Brighter smiles for brighter kids. Promises another, illustrated with children who, in retrospect, look a bit too much like they're auditioning for a remake of Frankenstein. As you drift toward sugar-induced sleep, you start to wonder, is it normal to be able to read in the dark if you open your mouth? Should candy ever tingle? Did your ancestors glow? Or are you evolving into a lighthouse? Eventually, the truth will dawn, slowly, painfully, and with a lot of lawsuits. By the 1920s, the party's over. Scientists realize that a glowing sweet might not be a good sign. Radium disappears from recipes, and everyone quietly pretends it was just a fun phase. The dentist retires early, but tonight, in the 1910 kitchen, you are the brightest kid on the block. Literally. Your sweets sparkle, your smile shines, and the future seems wonderfully, dangerously bright. Sleep tight, try not to illuminate the whole bedroom. Lunch is served. It's deviled ham, but this isn't just any ham. It's a Frankenstein creation glued together from various mystery meats, bound with borax, and disguised with enough salt to embalm a pharaoh. And yes, it wiggles. Let's set the scene. It's the early 1900s, and you're hungry. Very hungry. You head to the pantry, hoping for something fresh. Instead, you find a tin with a label featuring a smiling devil holding a pitchfork. Always a great sign for a food product. You pry it open and are immediately hit with a smell that's somewhere between a campfire, an old shoe, and what you imagine the inside of a haunted saloon would be like. You're not sure what part of the pig this came from, but based on the texture, it might be all of them, possibly in alphabetical order. You poke it with a fork. It jiggles. You poke it again, just to be sure it isn't going to bite back. This, dear friend, is the magic of meat glue, the secret behind many of the era's finest, red, most suspicious, canned meats, potted meats, and loaves of mystery protein. In the wild west of the 1900s, food industry, meat glue isn't just a product. It's a survival strategy. So what is meat glue, exactly? Well, it's less of a single substance and more of a vibe. Sometimes it's borax, a chemical more at home under your sink than on your sandwich. Sometimes it's a mix of starch, gelatin, and connective tissue, ground up and cooked until it becomes a sticky paste capable of holding together literally anything. Have a pile of beef scraps, pork trimmings, bits of animal that would normally go straight to the dog? Mix it all together, stir in some mystery powder, and voila, you have a ham loaf, or a beef brick, or, if you're feeling ambitious, an entirely new food group. Of course, it wasn't just about thriftiness. It was also about appearances. The early 1900s, housewife wanted her luncheon meat to look tidy, uniform, and not at all like it had been assembled from odds and ends. Enter meat glue, the edible spackle that made yesterday's trimmings today's main course. Add a little pink dye, a sprig of parsley, and serve with a smile. If anyone asks what's inside, just say patented protein innovation. That usually stops the questions. You might think, surely The government was watching? Not exactly. In the era before the Food and Drug Act, regulation was mostly a rumor, and ingredients were more suggestion than rule. Borax, a favorite meat preservative and binder, could be found in both cleaning supplies and sandwiches. It was even advertised as nature's perfect meat preservative, never mind the mild toxicity. The only thing more dangerous than eating it was, perhaps, admitting you'd eaten it. The texture of these glued-together meats was legendary. One bite, and you'd experience the full spectrum, firm, then squishy, then strangely chewy, and then somehow both gritty and slimy, depending on which part you landed on. It was the culinary equivalent of a trust fall, except with your stomach. Each bite was a game of, what animal part is this? And, will I regret this tomorrow? Spoiler, probably. And the flavors? Imagine if salt had dreams of being a magician, and those dreams involved making all other flavors disappear. Deviled ham, potted tongue, or spiced loaf. It all tasted like salt and a lingering suspicion that something had been pickled in formaldehyde. Despite this, there was a strange comfort to these meats. They filled lunchboxes, picnic baskets, and the midnight cravings of thousands. Kids traded mystery meat sandwiches at school. Fathers took them to the factory. If you were lucky, you might find a chunk of something that vaguely resembled real ham. If not, just keep chewing and pretend it's a culinary adventure. Eventually, the age of meat glue faded. Regulations arrived, borax was quietly retired from recipes, and luncheon meats became at least marginally more trustworthy. But in the wild world of 1900s cuisine, a little bit of glue went a long way, holding together meals, and perhaps the will to keep eating. So tonight, as you drift off to sleep, remember, somewhere out there, a loaf of meat is still wobbling, bound by the unbreakable bonds of early food science, and a complete disregard for digestive safety. Sweet dreams, and may your lunch tomorrow contain fewer surprises. It's time for a street hot dog. The good news? It only costs a nickel. The bad news? The meat is mostly whatever was left on the floor after closing, and the preservatives are strong enough to dissolve a horseshoe. Bon appétit! Let's set the scene. It's a bustling city sidewalk in 1905, and you're standing in line for the hottest lunch in town, literally and figuratively. Sausage vendors shout promises of freshness as they wheel carts through clouds of mysterious steam. The smell is intoxicating, spicy, savory, and ever so slightly chemical, with an undercurrent of maybe that's just the city. You hand over your nickel, and the vendor plops a plump, glistening sausage into your bun. He winks. Plenty of flavor in this one, which is comforting if you like surprises. You bite in. There's a satisfying snap, then a flood of unidentifiable textures and tastes. Is that pork? Beef? Something else entirely? It's a sausage, so it's probably best not to ask. The outside is crisp and salty. The inside is, well, complex. It's a little like eating the city's biography. One chewy, spicy, occasionally crunchy mouthful at a time. Here's the secret behind that flavor. Preservatives. Lots and lots of preservatives. Before the FDA, food manufacturers were in a chemical arms race, trying to keep meat fresh in the days before reliable refrigeration. Enter borax, again, sodium nitrate, formaldehyde, and, for the daring, a sprinkle of strychnine. Yes, strychnine, the same chemical used in rat poison. In small doses, it was thought to keep food safe and, as a bonus, make you feel invigorated. If you've ever felt a hot dog twitch, now you know why. The ingredient list is a scavenger hunt. Most sausages are made from a blend of mechanically recovered meat, which is a fancy way of saying whatever's left once the good cuts are gone. It might include pork, beef, horse, chicken, or the occasional mystery mammal. If it was in the butcher's shop and wasn't nailed down, it probably ended up in the grinder. Hooves, tendons, noses, tails, just add enough salt, spices, and red dye to make it festive. But don't worry, any bacteria that survived the cooking process is up against a cocktail of chemicals. Borax preserves the meat and gives it a strangely appealing bounce. Formaldehyde sets the texture. Sodium nitrate brings that iconic pink color, beloved by hot dog fans and toxicologists alike. And the strychnine? It gives the sausage a kick. Or maybe that's just your nervous system reacting. This was also the golden age of street food innovation. Vendors would boost flavor with coal tar dyes to make the links bright red, sawdust to stretch the meat, and whatever spices they could find at the bottom of the barrel. Mustard was optional, but always welcome, because if nothing else, it masked the taste of regret. Street sausages were cheap, filling, and, miraculously, didn't always kill you. City dwellers loved them. Factory workers grabbed them for a quick lunch. Kids bought them after school. And late-night revelers swore they cured every hangover. The lines at sausage carts were long. The rules were non-existent. And the only thing more dangerous than the food was the competition. Vendors guarded their secret recipes with their lives, though most of those secrets involved hoping no one checked the back room. Occasionally, the news would break a story about a bad batch, a sausage that took out half a block, or a summer heat wave that transformed city carts into mobile bioweapons. Health inspectors, when they bothered to show up, were sometimes bribed with free samples or simply distracted by the hypnotic, wobbly glow of nitrate pink sausage links. And yet, the sausage survived. Laws changed. Chemists moved on to inventing new horrors. But the love of cheap, risky street food never died. The modern hot dog is safer, but deep down, every time you eat one, you can't help but wonder how much of this is tradition and how much is just old-school chaos with a new label. So tonight, as you fall asleep, let your dreams wander to a world where every street corner was a culinary adventure, and every hot dog a roll of the dice. May your next sausage be less exhilarating. Sweet dreams, and keep the antacids close, just in case. You're feeling adventurous, so you order a bloater, a fish so heavily smoked, salted, and chemically treated it could survive nuclear winter. It's a local delicacy, if by delicacy you mean gastronomic dare. It's 1911, and you find yourself at a dockside market, drawn by the strangely magnetic scent of brine, smoke, and is that a hint of low tide? Or did something just expire behind the barrels? This is the sacred realm of preserved fish, a universe of bloaters, kippers, sprats, and herring, all stacked high and sold by vendors with hands like catcher's mitts and a lifetime of secrets. Here, freshness is an abstract concept, and the only thing more mysterious than the flavor is the origin story. You watch as the fishmonger hoists a glistening, bronze-skinned bloater from a pile. It looks defiant. The bloater is not your average fish. First, it's smoked whole, meaning all the flavor, bones, and possibly the fish's immortal soul are left inside. Second, it's salted within an inch of its afterlife, then packed into crates, sometimes for months. If you're lucky, you get a fish that's only slightly fossilized. If you're not, well, you've just gained a friend for life, because the taste will haunt you forever. You bravely take a bite. The outer layer is chewy, leathery, and so salty your tongue begins to wither like a sun-dried tomato. Beneath that is the smoky interior, a flavor profile best described as campfire meets lost shipwreck. There's also a sharp note of something chemical, courtesy of the occasional preservative, borax, nitrites, or a dusting of special salt that might be more at home on a sidewalk than on your dinner. If you survive the first mouthful, you get to ponder the small bones, which act as both toothpicks and reminders of your own mortality. Why eat this, you wonder? Because in 1911, fish snacks aren't just food, they're insurance against famine. a badge of regional pride, and occasionally a weapon in disputes with the neighboring village. Long before refrigeration, preservation was a culinary arms race. Whoever could make a fish last through the winter without sprouting legs and leaving was a hero. Smoking, salting, pickling, and chemical innovation all converged on the humble herring, creating snacks that would make modern dietitians file restraining orders. The bloaters are just the beginning. Kippers, split, gutted, and smoked, are considered more refined, if only because they're less likely to leap off the plate. Then there's the legendary red herring, dyed, smoked, and so pungent it was used to train hunting dogs, and, according to legend, to throw off enemy spies. If you could eat a red herring without weeping, you were ready for anything: war, famine, or another bite. Let's talk presentation. These fish come wrapped in oiled paper, sometimes in tins, always accompanied by a stern warning not to sniff too closely. In the right light, they glisten with a sheen that's almost radioactive. Some are so salty they never spoil. Others, if left too long, become self-aware. Social customs form around these snacks. Children trade fish tails for marbles. Workers eat them with raw onions and rye bread for breakfast, fueling a day of labor and a lifetime of suspicious glances from co-workers. Sailors swap tales of the 3-year bloater, a fish so old it developed opinions on politics and weather, and through it all, no one questions the process. The only rule: the stronger the smell, the more respected the fish. At some tables, the bloaters are eaten cold, with butter. At others, they're fried, grilled, or, on rare, festive occasions, set alight for dramatic effect. The bravest dip them in mustard or vinegar, in a tradition that likely started as a dare. Over time, as refrigeration takes hold and food safety becomes more than an optimistic rumor, the age of bloaters wanes. But in the early 1900s, a true fish snack is an adventure, a meal, a test of character, and a source of stories you'll tell your grandkids, assuming you still have the teeth for it. So tonight, as you lay your head down, be grateful that your midnight snack probably doesn't bite back, and your kitchen doesn't smell like the wharf at low tide. May your dreams be free of bloaters, and if you must eat a fish snack in your sleep, may it be mercifully boneless. You stroll past the candy counter, eyes wide at the colors, reds, blues, and greens that seem impossible in nature. That's because they're made with lead and arsenic. Pick your poison, literally. It's 1908 and you're a kid in a candy store, the dream scenario, except here, the word candy comes with a faint warning label your parents can't read, and a coloring that glows with the kind of intensity normally reserved for industrial accidents. The shelves are stacked high with jars and tins of sweets in colors so bright you can see them from the next street over. Lollipops, hard candies, jelly beans, and licorice whips, every one a miniature work of art and, possibly, a chemical hazard. You reach for a fistful of shiny red drops. The flavor is raspberry, or so they claim. What actually makes them red? Lead oxide? Or maybe mercuric sulfide? Either way, you chew thoughtfully, not realizing you're also getting your daily allowance of heavy metals. If you're feeling adventurous, try the blue ones, dyed with copper salts. They deliver both a fruity zing and a mild electrical charge to your dental fillings. The green candies are especially popular. They owe their vibrant color to arsenic, a pigment so famous for its lethal potential that it doubles as both dessert and murder mystery prop. But here, it's just another ingredient. The logic is simple. The brighter the treat, the better it sells. Who needs nature's pale pastels when you can have neon green bonbons that glow in the moonlight? And don't forget the yellows and oranges. Chromate-based dyes, tartrazine, and butter yellow, all the rage in the early 1900s. all cheerfully oblivious to the existence of the human liver. Each handful of candy is a little science experiment in sugar, texture, and how many trace elements you can survive before your next birthday. Parents love these candies. Why wouldn't they? They're cheap, long-lasting, and conveniently loud. Nothing keeps a child quiet quite like a mouthful of jawbreakers that might double as a construction material. School teachers are slightly less thrilled, mainly because the post-recess sugar rush hits like a meteor strike, followed by a sudden urge for nap time. Forever. The fun doesn't stop at color. Flavors are just as suspicious. The grape is laced with coal tar. Banana is a blend of mystery esters and a gentle whiff of shoe polish. Licorice, once a harmless root, is now fortified with ammonium chloride, a compound so salty and strange it doubles as both a treat and a dare. But who cares about chemistry? The ads say, pure, healthful, and delicious. And the shopkeeper nods, showing off a smile that's just slightly more metallic than you'd expect. Health concerns? Not a chance. The government has other things to worry about. Like, does this sausage contain rat? Or is that cough syrup or engine oil? Candy regulation is still years away, and kids' digestive systems are considered robust, mostly because no one's studied them too closely. If your tongue turns blue and your teeth rattle, that's just part of the adventure. Once in a while, a headline appears. Mystery illness strikes after birthday party, or schoolchildren glow during eclipse. But mostly, life goes on. Children trade colored sweets for marbles, skip rope, and sprint home at dusk with a sugar rush and a faint metallic aftertaste. Parents chalk up stomach aches to overindulgence, never realizing it might be a side effect of arsenic. Even dentists get in on the act, handing out teething candy and soothing lozenges to children and the occasional nervous adult. If anyone asks about the side effects, the answer is a smile and a free sample. With time, laws change, and the most radioactive shades are swapped for safer and duller colors. But in 1908, the world is sweet, wild, and only slightly toxic. You savor your candy, tongue-tingling, heart-racing, and wonder what tomorrow's flavor will bring. As you drift off to sleep, think of those rainbow jars, a reminder that sometimes the brightest treats come with the biggest risks. May your dreams be sweet, your snacks non-toxic, and your candy cravings safely satisfied. It's a hot day, so you treat yourself to some vanilla ice cream. The secret to its smoothness? Plaster of Paris, and a little chalk dust for that authentic crunch. There's also a non-zero chance of finding a surprise frog. Let's set the scene. It's the summer of 1907. You've survived another day of questionable meat and radioactive candy, and now you crave something cool, creamy, and, ideally, not lethal. The ice cream cart beckons, its little bell ringing a siren song of relief. You watch as the vendor scoops out a frosty swirl, promising the finest treat in town. You're suspicious, but it's hot, and hope is the strongest spice. You take your first bite. The flavor is vaguely vanilla, with undertones of barn and faint whispers of something that might be lemon or possibly sawdust. The texture is oddly gritty. That's not a fancy new ingredient, it's chalk, added to stretch the milk and give the ice cream a snowy white appearance. If it crunches, that's just extra minerals. Calcium is good for the bones, right? But chalk isn't the only bonus in your frozen treat. There's also a dash of plaster of Paris, aka gypsum, which helps the ice cream hold its shape in the sundae. Why use eggs, cream, or actual science when you can use the same stuff that repairs walls? Food safety hasn't been invented yet, and neither has refrigeration you can trust, so keeping ice cream fresh means getting creative with whatever's handy at the local hardware store. The base itself is a mystery. The cream is sometimes condensed milk, sometimes goat milk, and sometimes milch, which could refer to any white liquid vaguely resembling dairy. Sugar is expensive, so it's often cut with saccharin or glucose syrup, so thick it might double as wallpaper paste. Eggs, if present, are powdered, possibly left over from last Easter. Vanilla, sometimes from real beans, more often from beaver glands, coal tar, or the most persuasive label the company could afford. Let's talk mix-ins. In the 1900s, a chocolate chip might be a chipped tooth. Fruits could be whatever the vendor found at the bottom of yesterday's market crate. There are rumors, only partially exaggerated, of the occasional frog, bug, or mystery pebble making it into the churn. Nobody's testing for food allergens, unless you count does it make you break out in hives as a quality control metric. The colors are glorious, unnaturally bright whites, lemon yellows, and strawberry pinks courtesy of coal tar dyes and lead-based pigments. You get a rainbow in your cone and possibly a visit from the ghost of Marie Curie. The mint is radioactive green. The chocolate is so dark it absorbs light. If you're lucky, your teeth survive the experience. If not, you can always visit the barber surgeon for a quick extraction, with the same tools he uses for haircuts. You look around at the crowd. Kids are sticky, smiling, and slightly fluorescent. Parents shrug and hand out coins for seconds, reasoning that it's just a summer treat. The vendors boast of secret recipes and patented preservation methods, which is code for don't ask, don't tell. Every cart claims to be the best, but all of them seem to have the same slightly alarming aftertaste. And, of course, there's always the thrill of the unknown. Will you find a hidden almond, a button, a shard of something that might once have been a spoon? Ice cream is the ultimate culinary roulette, a sweet, chilly gamble with every bite. And yet, in a world where food safety is more hope than science, everyone lines up for a scoop. Life is short, summer is shorter, and your taste buds are already numb from the arsenic in the candy. As the sun sets and you finish your chalky, icy treat, you realize you've survived another snack. Your jaw is sore, your tongue tingles, and you're not sure if you're full or just in mild shock. But the evening is cool, the world feels a little sweeter, and, miraculously, you're still standing. So tonight, as you drift off to sleep, give thanks for modern ice cream, free of minerals, mystery meat, and industrial adhesives. May your dreams be cold, creamy, and blessedly frog-free. You pour yourself a glass of cold, creamy milk, fresh from the cow and straight to your cup. Pasteurization is a twinkle in Louis Pasteur's eye. So enjoy your daily helping of bacteria, TB, and maybe a few bonus flies. It's 1904, and you're feeling optimistic. Maybe too optimistic, given what's about to happen to your digestive system. You head to the icebox, pop open a bottle of milk, and pour yourself a tall, innocent-looking glass. The color is rich, the surface is thick with cream, and the aroma is, well, let's call it earthy. You take a sip. It's smooth, slightly warm, because cold storage is a theory, not a reality. And there's a lingering tang that suggests your cow was living her best life on a diet of turnips, grass, and occasional freedom. But here's the 1904 twist. Milk is a raw, living thing. It contains everything that went into the cow, plus whatever happened on the way to your kitchen. Unfiltered, unpasteurized, and lovingly bottled by hands that may or may not have heard of soap, your milk is a creamy lottery ticket for your immune system. The risks are as old as civilization itself: bacteria, puzzles, dirt, and, if you're really unlucky, a tiny chunk of hay or the occasional insect. If you're very unlucky, you're about to discover why milk fever is a phrase and not just a fun dairy dance. Tuberculosis is the special guest in every bottle. Cows in 1904 are rarely tested for TB. And there's no law against selling milk from a sick animal, especially if the farmer needs to pay off last month's repair on the plough. Each glass is a high-stakes gamble. Will today's breakfast be nutritious, or will you spend the afternoon praying to the porcelain gods? Sometimes both. Let's talk delivery. The milkman is an institution, trundling through the streets with glass bottles clinking, sometimes delivered door to door, sometimes just left in the sun for a neighbor or passing raccoon to investigate. He's friendly, reliable, and probably not trained in the art of refrigeration. In summer, your milk arrives lukewarm and gently fizzing. In winter, it may freeze solid, only to thaw into a chunky, unpredictable surprise. Skim milk? That's just what happens after the cream is stolen off the top and sold to a richer customer down the street. Worried about germs? Good luck. Most families assume milk is good for you because it came from a cow that looks healthy and only coughs occasionally. Some wise souls boil their milk before drinking, but most people think that ruins the flavor, or they just can't be bothered. Besides, there's a certain pride in surviving your beverage. After all, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, or at least makes your stomach more interesting. If you're a child, you drink milk by the pint. If you're an adult, you use it for everything, cooking, baking, and on especially bold days, adding a splash to your questionable morning coffee. Babies get milk straight from the cow. And if you're very fancy, you might even own a cow named Bessie, Daisy, or Lucky, named for the ones who survived the year. There are attempts at safety, of course. Some inventors market milk clarifiers, mysterious devices promising to remove dirt and unspeakable matter. Others add preservatives like formaldehyde, borax, or salicylic acid, all of which do wonders for shelf life and mysterious things to your insides. Adulteration is common. Water is added to stretch a gallon, chalk to brighten the color, and sometimes a dash of sugar to mask the flavor of impending doom. Then, one day, a miracle. Pasteurization. Suddenly, science offers a way to kill off the worst of the invisible threats. But until that takes hold, every glass is a test of courage and a potential chapter in your medical autobiography. So tonight, as you lay your head down, be grateful for the quiet heroism of modern milk, pasteurized, refrigerated, and almost never containing bonus diseases. May your dreams be smooth, your stomach settled, and your memories of 1904 milk safely in the past. You open your lunchbox to find a sandwich of potted meat. Its exact origin is a secret even to the butcher. But don't worry. The label promises nourishing compounds. It doesn't promise they're food. It's a school day, 1906, and you're rummaging through your well-worn lunch pail, hungry for anything that isn't pickled, dried, or actively plotting against you. There it is, wrapped in waxed paper. Your daily mystery meat sandwich. The bread is sturdy, more brick than bun, and the filling squishes alarmingly when pressed. You take a whiff. There's a hint of salt, a cloud of pepper, and a rich, meaty aroma that defies simple categorization. Pork? Beef? Is that a note of chicken or just optimism? No one knows. And asking the butcher is a quick way to get banned from polite company. Potted meat is the unsung hero of the 1900s lunchbox. Potted doesn't mean flower pot, though if you find gravel in your sandwich, it's just a bonus source of minerals. Instead, it means crammed into a pot, cooked into oblivion, and preserved in fat. Anything that can be ground up and salted is fair game. Beef shank, pork shoulder, possibly a hint of squirrel if times are tight and the butcher's feeling wild. The end result is a soft, spreadable substance with the color of wallpaper paste and the consistency of existential dread. The magic of potted meat is in the details. Every butcher has a secret blend of spices, which is shorthand for whatever fell on the floor and survived. Salt is the main player, joined by pepper, sage, and occasionally cloves for an air of culinary sophistication. If your meat is pink, it's probably the result of sodium nitrate. the era's favorite preservative, and a shade of color not seen in nature. The fat cap on top isn't just for flavor. It's a primitive security system. Scrape it off, and you risk exposing secrets best left buried. You take a bite. The flavor is complex, by which I mean confusing. It's salty, meaty, and somehow faintly metallic, as if the sandwich itself had opinions about modern plumbing. The texture varies, sometimes smooth, sometimes gritty, and always with the occasional surprise of something chewy. Is it tendon? Gristle? Pure protein? The only thing for certain is that you'll be chewing for a while, and maybe pondering your life choices. If you're lucky, your lunchbox also contains a pickle. This too is a test of character. It's either crisp and refreshing or so acidic it could clean a penny. If you get a piece of fruit, celebrate, you've won the lottery. Otherwise, you supplement your meal with a hard biscuit, which doubles as a hockey puck for after-lunch entertainment. Potted meat isn't just a schoolyard staple, it's a working man's lunch, a traveler's best friend, and an emergency ration for households everywhere. It's shelf-stable, indestructible, and ready to eat as soon as you find the courage. Soldiers carry tins of it in their packs. Explorers bring it to the North Pole, and families stockpile it for winters so grim even the rats consider migrating. Of course, safety is a matter of faith. Regulations are new, and enforcement is mostly theoretical. Labels promise pure beef, choice pork, or select poultry, but none mention the fine print. May contain traces of hooves, snouts, or the dreams of lost butchers. Ingredient lists are vague, and some tins include the helpful phrase meat product, which could mean anything from prime cut to possibly legal. Eventually, the lunchbox lottery changes as food safety laws tighten. Potted meat becomes less mysterious, more regulated, and, dare I say, almost trustworthy. But in 1906, every sandwich is a surprise, every lunchbox a minor gamble with your taste buds, and every bite a reminder of how much you love the concept of dinner. So tonight, as you settle in and drift towards sleep, be grateful for your modern lunch. Predictable, safe, and almost never described as an adventure. May your dreams be untroubled by mystery meats, and your next sandwich a masterpiece of transparency. Your little one has a sniffle, so you reach for the family favorite. Cough syrup with heroin, alcohol, and chloroform. It'll stop their cough, their breathing, and possibly their memories of the entire school year. It's a cold night in 1901, and your child's nose is running faster than a turn-of-the-century newsboy. In the dim glow of a kerosene lamp, you rummage through the kitchen cabinet, past the borax, past the radium chocolates, and straight to the miracle bottle, Mrs. Winslow's soothing syrup. You check the label. Ingredients: morphine, alcohol, chloroform, and a hint of wild cherry. For a moment, you marvel at the fact that, in this era, your child's medicine shares a recipe with a speakeasy cocktail and half the town's criminal underworld. You pour out a generous spoonful, watching the thick syrup glug into the tarnished silver. Your child, already drooping, swallows it obediently. Within minutes, the cough is gone. The fidgeting stops, and so does any possibility of them remembering their own name before sunrise. They're out, peaceful, limp, and snoring faintly like a tiny steamboat. If you're lucky, so are you, because this was the era when a sleepless night could break the whole household, and parents prized anything that brought silence, even if it came with a whiff of existential risk. Let's talk about the science. In 1901, doctors and pharmacists had a unique approach to children's medicine. The question wasn't, is this safe for kids? But, will this make my life easier? And the answer, 9 times out of 10, was yes, if you don't mind risking a nap that lasts until the next century. If your child had a cold, a cough, teething pain, night terrors, or just a little too much energy, there was a syrup for that. There were dozens of brands, each boasting relief without delay, and each with a cocktail of opiates and sedatives that would make modern pharmacists faint. It didn't stop with heroin. There were syrups with codeine, tinctures with laudanum, and even tonics that promised to boost growth and brain power by simply knocking your child into next week. No one worried about addiction, at least not until little Timmy started asking for the good syrup at breakfast. If you couldn't sleep, you drank a little yourself. It was soothing, it was effective, and it tasted just medicinal enough to feel official. Pharmaceutical companies advertised everywhere. Magazine ads showed cherubic babies drifting off in mothers' arms, while taglines promised safe, sure, and gentle. The gentle part was a stretch. Still, exhausted parents bought these syrups by the crate, grateful for a silent night, even if it came with the risk of a side effect list longer than the Sunday sermon. Doctors played along, sometimes prescribing just a teaspoon and sometimes, in a pinch, recommending a little whiskey if you ran out. Of course, the morning came with a price. Children woke up groggy, glassy-eyed, or, if the dose was a little too generous, confused about what year it was. But there was no FDA yet, and no legal requirement to prove a medicine wouldn't turn your toddler into a jazz-age lounge singer. Eventually, the winds of reform arrived. Science caught up, regulations appeared, and heroin for children fell out of fashion, replaced by cough syrups with names you can pronounce and side effects you can survive. So tonight, as you drift off in your peaceful, syrup-free home, spare a grateful thought for modern medicine. May your sleep be gentle, your coughs mild, and your medicine cabinet free of anything that needs to be locked away. Sweet dreams. You crave something sour, so you fish a pickle from the corner store's barrel. It's been marinating in a brine that doubles as industrial cleaner, and there's something floating in there that might once have been a rat. It's 1903, and you're in the neighborhood general store. A place that smells like old leather, mystery spices, and ambition. You sidestep sacks of flour, crates of lard, and an impressive display of canned bloaters. There, tucked in the corner, stands the legendary pickle barrel, a wooden vat so imposing it looks like it could have its own backstory. The barrel is half full of cloudy, yellow-green liquid. On the surface, a thin film swirls with bits of peppercorn, garlic, and a few items best left unidentified. A ladle, sticky and well-loved, sits nearby, just daring you to take the plunge. You reach in, careful not to brush your knuckles against anything too textured. The pickles themselves are a study in diversity. Some are plump and firm, others slightly shriveled, and a few look suspiciously translucent, like they've seen things no cucumber should see. You grab the one that seems least likely to bite back and bite in. The flavor is shocking, sharp, vinegary, and tinged with a chemical afterglow that could strip paint. Beneath the brine, there's a subtle hint of something metallic. That's the barrel-aged experience, plus a whisper of whatever else is using the barrel as a timeshare. Back in 1903, pickle barrels are a culinary institution and a microbiological experiment. Before refrigeration, they're the best way to keep vegetables fresh, by which we mean not technically compost yet. The brine is a mix of water, vinegar, salt, and sometimes borax or alum, ingredients as likely to clean a wound as to flavor a cucumber. Add in a couple weeks at room temperature, and you have a preservation method that's both impressive and, in a way, mildly threatening. But there's more than just pickles in this barrel. Neighborhood kids occasionally dare each other to drop in a marble or, if they're feeling bold, a frog. Every so often, the grocer fishes out something unexpected. A small coin, a button. Once, a mouse. He shrugs, tosses it in the alley, and assures everyone the brine is self-purifying. The science is more optimistic than accurate. Hygiene is theoretical. There's no daily changing of the brine, just a periodic top-up and a healthy disregard for expiration dates. The barrel itself is rarely washed. After all, some say the flavor comes from seasoning. Others say it's because scrubbing it would take 3 grown men and a steam engine. The resulting ecosystem is so robust you could probably start a whole new branch of evolutionary biology by studying the barrel alone. Despite the risks, pickles are beloved. They're cheap, filling, and, when you get a good one, shockingly delicious. They brighten up dreary lunches, balance out salty meats, and, for the truly desperate, double as a snack and dare. School children line up with pennies for a taste. Grown-ups buy them by the jar, hopeful the next one won't glow in the dark. Occasionally, someone falls ill, usually blamed on bad air or an unlucky pickle. The grocer shrugs and swears it's never happened before. No one really believes him, but the alternative is going without pickles. And in 1903, that's unthinkable. Eventually, the era of mass-produced, sealed-in-a-factory pickles arrives, bringing predictability, hygiene, and the end of the local barrel's reign. But tonight, as you settle under the covers, remember the thrill of the unknown, the bracing tang, the unexpected crunch, and the faint risk of finding something extra in your snack. May your dreams be tart, your pickles crisp, and your brine always a mystery. Just not too mysterious. Nothing says growing up healthy like a candy cigarette. They're sweet, chalky, and laced with a little nicotine, because why not let kids get a head start on their vices? It's a Saturday morning in 1912, and you're strutting down Main Street with the swagger of a miniature tycoon. Clutched between your fingers is a slender white stick, candy, technically, but with all the street cred of the real thing. Your friends gather around, each of you practicing your best squint and slow-motion exhale, pretending you're as cool as the movie stars in the silent pictures. Adults stroll by and smile, as if it's perfectly normal for a 7-year-old to look like a grizzled union boss negotiating for shorter hours and a new lunch pail. The candy itself is nothing special, a tube of pressed sugar and cornstarch, dusted with a white powder that may or may not also be used to chalk billiard cues. The taste is like eating sweet drywall, but nobody cares. The real magic is in the ritual. Tapping the box against your palm, offering one to your best friend, practicing your cough just in case someone's watching. If you're lucky, your brand is the kind that lets you blow a puff of harmless cornstarch smoke. For a fleeting moment, you are the master of your own imaginary speakeasy. Manufacturers aren't shy about the purpose either. Boxes are designed to look exactly like grown-up cigarette packs, right down to the gold-embossed fonts and the tiny flip-top lid. The ads promise delicious fun for all ages and show kids with perfect hair pretending to light up as if nothing could be more wholesome. Some brands even flavor their candies with a hint of mint or clove for a more authentic experience. A few particularly bold recipes in the early years even sprinkle in a dash of real tobacco for realism, as if childhood needed to be any more dangerous. Let's talk health. In 1912, nobody's worried. If anything, parents see it as a harmless diversion, much safer than the real thing, and a good way to keep little hands busy. Besides, everyone smokes. Your mother has a cigarette with her morning coffee. Your father puffs a pipe while reading the newspaper. The family doctor lights up in the waiting room, humming about nervous energy. The idea that candy cigarettes might inspire future habits doesn't cross a single mind, mostly because they're all too busy unwrapping their own after-dinner cigars. Playgrounds become impromptu smoking lounges. Kids swap brands, compare smoke quality, and tell tales of daring to sneak a real cigarette from Uncle Walt's coat. Some even collect the empty candy packs, showing off their collection as if it were a rare set of baseball cards. Teachers roll their eyes. The local dentist, meanwhile, makes a note to invest in more filling material. There's a certain nostalgia to it all. a gentler lawlessness that seems charming in hindsight, but in reality was just the world's slowest moving public health crisis. As years go by and science starts to catch up, questions arise. Is it a good idea to train kids for a habit that sends adults to sanatoriums? Should there be rules about putting tobacco, or even just the idea of tobacco, into children's hands? By the mid-century, attitudes shift. Candy cigarettes are quietly rebranded as candy sticks. The boxes become less realistic. The faux smoke vanishes, and the grown-ups start whispering about influence and impressionable minds. Eventually, regulations ban the most brazen products, and playgrounds return to less carcinogenic rituals. But tonight, as you drift off, let your dreams wander back to the days of chalky sweets, imaginary smoke rings, and the fierce pride of being a candy cigarette king. May your dreams be sugar-coated, your health untroubled, and your inner child forever rebellious, but just a little bit safer. You slice into a loaf of bread that's so full of alum and chalk, it never goes stale, because it never really qualified as bread in the first place. Bonus points if it glows under ultraviolet light. You slice into a loaf of bread that's so full of alum and chalk, it never goes stale, because it never really qualified as bread in the first place. Bonus points if it glows under ultraviolet light. It's a chilly morning in 1909, and you're already missing your teeth. Breakfast means bread, but don't expect warm, pillowy slices or a fresh baked aroma. Instead, you wrestle a brick of bread from the pantry, a rectangular lump so dense you could use it to patch a leaky roof. The crust is hard enough to spark against your knife, and the interior is a pale, mysterious white that never seems to dry out or mold. You tell yourself this is a good thing. It's progress, after all. Who wants bread that acts like food when you could have a loaf with the shelf life of a tombstone? The secret to this bread's immortality isn't just the hearty Midwestern wheat, or what little wheat is actually in there. The magic is in the additives. Bakers of the era are on a quest for profit, and nothing says stretch the flour like tossing in some alum, plaster of Paris, and a little chalk for color. These aren't just for show. Alum keeps the bread unnaturally soft, if you can call it that, and brilliantly white. Chalk bulks up the loaf and convinces your eyes that you're eating something pure. Never mind that your jaw has started to ache. There's a certain pride in white bread at the turn of the century. Whole wheat is considered old-fashioned, the food of the poor or the deeply rural. If you can afford factory bread, you want it to be white as a new handkerchief, even if it's been chemically lightened to an alarming degree. Advertisements promise purity, digestive ease, and the healthfulness of science. Nowhere do they mention that a slice left out for a week will still look and taste exactly the same. The only sign of aging is that it gets harder to tell the difference between your breakfast and your front porch. Bakers are inventive, if nothing else. They experiment with whatever's cheap, abundant, and mostly legal. Sometimes it's powdered rice, potato starch, or old breadcrumbs rebaked into new loaves. On rough weeks, sawdust or ground beans find their way into the mix. The result is bread that's technically edible and practically indestructible. It's the food equivalent of a Victorian family heirloom, passed down, rarely consumed, and still looking suspiciously fresh at Thanksgiving. The government is starting to notice. Food safety is in its awkward teen years, and a few brave souls begin to ask questions about why their bread tastes faintly of drywall. Chemists uncover shocking truths. Some bakery loaves are up to 10% chalk and plaster. Tests show that a steady diet of alum bread is not only tough on the teeth, but also the kidneys. The public shrugs, then promptly orders another round of white sandwiches for the kids' lunchboxes. And let's not forget shelf life. Mold doesn't dare grow here. Mice, usually the ultimate test of edibility, take one nibble and reconsider their career choices. Some say these loaves would survive a minor apocalypse. Handy if you need an emergency building material, or a doorstop that doubles as a snack. As regulations tighten and the science of baking inches toward actual food, bread slowly regains its rightful place as a perishable treat. But for now, you're left with a loaf that's more monument than meal. So as you settle in for sleep tonight, grateful for bread that grows stale instead of immortal, let your dreams be soft, your toast golden, and your next sandwich free of anything you can find in a hardware store. May you always enjoy your bread while it's still alive. You want protein, so you open a can labeled brains. The label doesn't specify which animal, and the jelly coating is suspiciously thick. It spreads beautifully and haunts your dreams. It's 1911, and breakfast is the Wild West of culinary invention. Forget scrambled eggs or bacon. Today's protein comes from a tin, the color of a rain cloud, and with a label so vague it could be a riddle. The grocer swears by it. Nourishing, he insists, as if that word covers all sins. You grab a can of breakfast brains and a matching tin of jellied tongue. The pictures on the label are cheerful. The reality is less so. You start with the brains. The lid pops open with a hiss, releasing an aroma that's a complicated blend of meat, tin, and maybe just a hint of pencil eraser. Inside, a pale, creamy mass gently cradled in a layer of quivering jelly. The jelly is there for preservation, but it also acts as a warning, like a moat around a medieval castle. You scoop a dollop onto your toast. It glistens, it slides, it defies gravity and reason. The texture is creamy, yet oddly resilient, as if daring you to chew. The flavor? Faintly meaty, vaguely metallic, and with an aftertaste that could be described as thought-provoking. But you're not done. Next is the jellied tongue. You turn out the contents with a satisfying splat. A solid chunk, glossy and pink, surrounded by a moat of wobbly aspic. It slices like luncheon meat and spreads like ambition. Tongue was once a prized delicacy, after all. If an animal was going to spend its life talking, why not put that muscle to good use? You slather it on a biscuit and take a bite. The experience is chewy, gelatinous, and oddly cold, even after a trip through the frying pan. Why did people eat these? Because the early 1900s were nothing if not practical. No part of the animal was wasted. Brains, tongues, kidneys, feet, and tails all found their way into breakfast tins. The process was called value-added preservation. Translated, anything that could be boiled, chopped, and suspended in jelly became a delicacy, especially if you were out of options and the next train shipment was late. Canned brains and tongues weren't just for the poor. Fancy households served them at brunch, their guests pretending to enjoy the novelty as they quietly eyed the nearest potted plant. Cookbook authors raved about their nutritional benefits: calcium, iron, unmatched texture, while completely ignoring the risk of nightmares. Meanwhile, food companies competed for the best mouthfeel, the silkiest jelly, and the boldest claims about mental sharpness. The real challenge was knowing what you were eating. Regulations were minimal, and ingredient lists optimistic. The brain could come from pigs, sheep, cows, or a combination depending on what was available and how good the label glue was that day. Sometimes the flavor changed from can to can, giving breakfast an element of suspense. Modern diners would run screaming. But in 1900s, you just shrugged, spread another glistening dollop on your toast, and hoped your digestive system was feeling brave. For the adventurous, there was head cheese, a mosaic of cheeks, ears, and snouts, all set in a mysterious jelly, perfect for those who thought breakfast should come with a side of existential risk. So tonight, as you drift off, be thankful for your breakfast cereal and toast. May your morning meal never wobble, and your protein always require less bravery. Sweet dreams, and may you never wake up to the sound of a can opener and the ominous slosh of aspic. You buy a wedge of cheese that's strangely springy. That's because it contains enough paraffin wax and borax to clean a bathtub. It pairs nicely with your asbestos crackers. It's 1910, and you're on a quest for a little comfort food. Nothing fancy. Just a nice, hearty wedge of cheese to go with your bread, and perhaps distract from the fact that most of your dinner is suspiciously grey. The grocer's display is impressive. Wheels, blocks, and pyramids of cheese, glowing in shades of orange and yellow unknown to cows, or frankly to nature itself. You select a wedge labeled American style, a phrase that, at this point in history, should make anyone nervous. You slice in. The knife slides through with the resistance of a damp eraser, leaving behind a waxy sheen. The texture is strangely bouncy. It squishes. It squeaks. You press it with your thumb and half expect it to spring back like a memory foam pillow. The scent is more industrial than dairy. Faintly sweet. Slightly sharp. And with a whisper of something you can't quite place. Lemon? Pine cleaner? Hope? Here's the secret. At the turn of the century, cheese is less a food and more a science experiment. Milk is expensive and spoils quickly, so cheesemakers get creative. Borax, a chemical more commonly found in laundry rooms, is used to preserve and purify the cheese. Paraffin wax is layered on top to seal in freshness, which also happens to seal in whatever bacteria was having a party inside. Sometimes, the cheese itself is bulked up with a little chalk, flour, or mashed potatoes to stretch the batch. If it's white, you're lucky. If it's yellow, it probably got a touch of coal tar dye for that sunny, artificial glow. The advertisements are relentless. Healthy, digestible, long, lasting. The promise is that this cheese will keep for weeks, maybe months, even if the weather disagrees. And it will, in the sense that it might never decompose. The trade-off? Cheese that's less about flavor and more about shelf life, texture, and, let's be honest, structural integrity. In an emergency, you could use a block of this stuff to level your kitchen table or prop open a stubborn window. But what about taste? Well, bland is an understatement. There's a saltiness, a waxy coating that clings to your teeth, and a faint bitterness that hints at long journeys through both the cow and the chemistry lab. Some wheels taste sour, others almost sweet. If you're lucky, you get a flavor close to real cheese. If not, you'll be scraping paraffin from your molars all night. Cheese at the turn of the century is more than food. It's survival. It fills lunch pails, lines pantry shelves, and keeps sandwiches from feeling completely hopeless. If it's a bit rubbery, so be it. At least it won't walk away or grow blue fuzz until next spring. The children don't mind. They just peel the wax off and use it to make tiny, greasy sculptures. Sometimes you get lucky. A wedge from a local farmer, sharp and crumbly, and just sour enough to wake you up. But more often, your cheese is a modern marvel of food engineering, indistinguishable from soap, eraser, or insulation. Depending on the recipe and your optimism, eventually, food safety standards catch up. Borax is banished, and cheese slowly becomes something cows would recognize again. Until then, you enjoy your springy wedge and hope for the best. So as you drift off tonight, be grateful for cheddar that crumbles, brie that oozes, and any dairy product that can't be used to polish your shoes. May your dreams be soft, your cheese authentic, and your snacks always slightly less bouncy. You're offered a marshmallow at a friend's party. It's chewy, sweet, and just a touch toxic, thanks to some questionable fluff enhancers. You eat two. You regret everything. It's 1908, and marshmallows are all the rage at children's birthday parties and ladies' tea gatherings. They're considered the height of confectionery elegance, pillowy, pastel, and promising a break from the era's parade of pickled vegetables and beef tongue. You eagerly grab a handful from a crystal bowl, marveling at their pristine color and velvety softness. Surely, you think, nothing this delightful could be dangerous, but you'd be wrong. The marshmallow of the early 20th century is less a food and more a chemistry set. The ingredients are simple: sugar, starch, egg whites, and a few things the FDA would later refer to, with alarm, as not food. Chalk and plaster, for that distinctive mouthfeel. Borax, because if it preserves meat, why not mallow? And for an extra dash of fun, the occasional helping of zinc sulfate or sodium fluoride, which did wonders for shelf life, and even better for the local undertaker's business. Fluffy as they are, these marshmallows have a bounce. You squeeze one, and it springs back like a rubber ball. Bite in, and there's an initial rush of sweetness, followed by a lingering aftertaste that could be described as mineral, or, if you're less charitable, dental. The texture is dense, slightly gritty, and suspiciously hearty. It's the only candy that might give your jaw a workout and your dentist a reliable income. Why all the additives? Because real marshmallow root is expensive, and mass production demands shortcuts. Cornstarch bulks things up. Chalk keeps them white. Borax makes them keep their shape, even after 3 weeks under a tablecloth. Some recipes call for salicylic acid or even a pinch of strychnine for that special zing that says, "This treat might not love you back." It's a minor miracle anyone survived a birthday party before 1910, but survive they did, and even asked for more. Kids loved the spongy texture, the pastel colors, courtesy of coal tar dyes, and the thrill of eating something that might secretly glow under a full moon. Parents considered marshmallows a sign of prosperity, a soft, modern alternative to the jawbreaker or the iron-hard licorice stick. Occasionally, someone would complain of a mild stomachache or a bout of marshmallow malaise, but this was chalked up, sometimes literally, to overindulgence. Party games included tossing marshmallows in the air, building little towers, and, inevitably, fighting over the last one in the bowl. If a marshmallow hit the floor, there was a decent chance it would bounce and roll under the couch, only to be rediscovered, unchanged, at next year's party. No one worried about expiration dates, mostly because expiration was an abstract concept. The bravest children roasted their marshmallows over open flames, watching with wonder as they blistered and sputtered, emitting a faint chemical scent that made adults step back. S'mores weren't invented yet, but a toasted marshmallow was a rare prize, especially if you managed to avoid setting the curtains on fire. Eventually, food standards arrived, and marshmallows became less risky, more boring, and dare we say, delightful in all the right ways. The mineral aftertaste faded, the bounce softened, and a hint of rat poison vanished from the ingredient list. Children still begged for seconds, but now their parents could say yes with only a mild twinge of concern. So tonight, as you drift into dreams, savor the idea of marshmallows that are sweet, safe, and don't double as construction materials. May your desserts be fluffy, your ingredients pronounceable, and your parties blessedly uneventful. The soda fountain promises life and vitality. The reality? Mercury for your nerves, phosphate for your bones, and a little opium syrup to take the edge off. Who needs sleep? It's a bright afternoon in 1905, and you wander into the corner pharmacy for a cold drink. The marble countertop sparkles, glass decanters glisten, and the soda jerk greets you with a wink, equal parts bartender, barista, and amateur chemist. The menu is as long as your arm and twice as confusing. Phosphate cola, celery tonic, nerve syrup, and the infamous miracle elixir. Each drink is a swirling mystery of bubbles and hope. You order something called Dr. Miracle's Elixir Pop because you, like everyone else, believe that a little sparkle and fizz can solve life's problems. The soda jerk nods sagely, selects a bottle from beneath the counter, and pours a syrup so bright it looks radioactive. He adds a splash of seltzer, a sprinkle of secret powder, and tops it off with a maraschino cherry, glowing neon red, naturally. You take a sip. The flavor is wild, a fusion of fruit, licorice, and something metallic that tickles the back of your throat. It's sweet, but there's an unmistakable medicinal kick, as if your drink is doubling as a doctor's visit. Your tongue tingles, your brain starts to hum. You feel like you could run a marathon or, at the very least, alphabetize your neighbor's spice rack. Here's the secret. In 1905, soda pop is less a refreshment and more a wellness gamble. Each glass is a chemical experiment, a daring blend of restorative tonics, herbal extracts, and a smattering of whatever was trending in the medical journals that week. Mercury for nerves, phosphoric acid for vigor, strychnine in minuscule doses for energy. Even lithium salts make a guest appearance, promising to smooth out your mood and, unintentionally, your memory. Many sodas double as medicine. Got a headache? There's a soda for that, probably packed with caffeine and opium syrup. Trouble sleeping? There's a soothing sarsaparilla, laced with bromide to quiet the mind, and possibly everything else. Stomach upset? Try a ginger tonic loaded with enough alcohol to make you forget your problems entirely. The ads are relentless. Newspapers promise that soda pop will cure everything from baldness to heartbreak, offering testimonials from satisfied customers with suspiciously glowing skin. Life, health, energy, the posters shout alongside images of sprightly children and robust grandparents. There are even tonics for delicate ladies, with a hint of morphine for extra calm. Children, naturally, love soda. The colors, the bubbles, the way your lips turn blue from blueberry bliss, dyed with whatever made the label brightest. Some kids swear by celery soda, others by lemon phosphate. Parents buy bottles by the crate, convinced that these drinks are as healthful as fresh air, or at least as mysterious as the air in a big city. No one asks about long-term effects. Side effects are simply adjustments. If you find yourself jittery, dizzy, or suddenly fluent in 3 new languages, that's just the magic of Dr. Miracle. Occasionally, the newspapers report a bad batch. Customers left woozy or, in rare cases, briefly paralyzed. The manufacturer quietly changes the recipe and puts a new label on the bottle. Eventually, regulation arrives. Phosphates and mercury fade from the soda scene, and snake oil is replaced by more familiar, if less entertaining, flavors. Today's sodas are tame by comparison, mostly sugar, caffeine, and nostalgia. But back in 1905, each sip was a roll of the dice, and the pharmacy was the most exciting place in town. So, as you drift off to sleep tonight, raise a glass to soda pop's wild past, when every flavor was a gamble, and refreshing meant possibly transcending this earthly plane. May your dreams be fizzy, your drinks free of mercury, and your adventures always just a little bit bubbly. You buy an apple from a street cart. It looks shiny and perfect because it's dipped in formaldehyde and dusted with lead-based powder. That's one way to keep the doctor away. It's a breezy afternoon in 1902, and the city sidewalk is alive with the shouts of vendors, the rattle of carts, and the sweet, sour aroma of produce in various states of ambition. The street is your supermarket, a world of fruit baskets, spice tins, and daring culinary shortcuts. You pause at a fruit cart, eyes drawn to a mountain of apples glowing brighter than any you've ever seen. They look flawless, polished to a mirror shine. The vendor flashes a winning smile and assures you, best in the city. Guaranteed fresh. You pick up an apple. The skin is firm and waxy, the color so vivid it's almost suspicious. You take a bite. The first crunch is satisfying, crisp and sweet, until you notice a faint chemical note beneath the fruitiness. That's not just the taste of ambition, it's the taste of preservation. In the days before refrigeration, vendors get creative. Apples are dipped in formaldehyde baths to keep the bugs at bay and extend shelf life far beyond what nature intended. The result? An apple that could survive a cross-country train ride or, possibly, a minor apocalypse. Spices are no safer. The vendor offers you a pinch of ground cinnamon for your next pie. The aroma is strong, but so is the aftertaste, a hint of bitterness, a little extra zing. That's because the 1900s spice trade is a wild west of substitution and adulteration. Cinnamon may be stretched with brick dust or dyed with lead chromate for that bold, golden color. Nutmeg is often padded out with ground nutshells, and black pepper might be bulked up with anything from charcoal to dried olive leaves. If it tastes interesting, that's just part of the adventure. The world of street snacks is equally thrilling. You spy a pile of strawberries so red they practically glow. The secret? An occasional dunk in red dye, coal tar, lead, or mercury-based, depending on which shipment arrived cheapest that week. Bananas shine with a thin coat of mineral oil or paraffin, and oranges are rubbed down with a chemical brightener to distract from any actual bruises beneath the skin. Why all the effort? Because street vendors are fighting for survival, and presentation is everything. Fresh fruit is a rare luxury in a world where cold storage is a rumor. Spices lose potency quickly, and customers want flavor that punches back. A little chemical here, a little powder there, and suddenly even the most wilted produce looks ready for a royal banquet. Hygiene, of course, is optional. The carts are cleaned occasionally, maybe. The produce is displayed in the open air, right at wagon wheel height, prime splatter zone for passing horses, enthusiastic children, and whatever is trickling down the curb. A quick rinse in chemical wash, or a douse in vinegar, is the standard sanitization. As for the vendor's hands, they are clean in spirit if not in practice. Once in a while, someone falls ill, an upset stomach, a strange rash, or a mysterious faintness after trying the latest batch of plums. The vendor blames bad humors, city air, or occasionally that other guy down the street. Customers nod, buy another apple, and try not to think too hard about what's keeping their produce so pretty. Eventually, food safety catches up, and vendors lose access to their most theatrical preservation tricks. But for now, you finish your chemically ambitious snack and wash it down with a sense of optimism. After all, what's life without a little risk and a whole lot of flavor? As you settle in for the night, grateful for your modern grocery store, may your dreams be full of fresh fruit, your spices pure, and your snacks free of formaldehyde and just a touch less adventurous. You're at a fancy dinner, and dessert is a wobbly tower of lime gelatin. The color is electric green, the flavor is mystery, and the texture is one step away from industrial glue. It's 1907, and you're dressed in your Sunday best for a special meal at your neighbor's house. The table is set with fine china, mismatched silverware, and in the place of honor sits a shimmering, jiggling masterpiece, a molded gelatin dessert. It bounces when you poke it, quivers at the sound of footsteps, and seems to stare back with a silent challenge. Eat me, if you dare. The Victorians loved gelatin. In fact, in the early 20th century, a good jelly dessert was a mark of social status and household skill. Never mind that making it involved boiling animal bones for hours and straining the resulting goo through cheesecloth. just to get the right clarity. If you had a little extra cash, you could buy boxed gelatin mix, conveniently pre-flavored with ingredients the manufacturers kept top secret. What you didn't know couldn't hurt you. Or so you hoped. You scoop up a quivering spoonful. The color is alarming, neon green, courtesy of coal tar dye or perhaps a hint of copper sulfate. The taste is sweet, vaguely citrus, and unmistakably artificial. The texture defies nature, simultaneously slippery and sticky, somehow melting and chewy at once. It clings to your spoon and, possibly, to your soul. The real trick was getting the dessert out of the mold in one piece. If you succeeded, you earned bragging rights. If not, you had an avant-garde centerpiece and a good story for next Sunday's gossip. Some hosts suspended bits of fruit, nuts, or, if feeling adventurous, minced ham or boiled eggs inside. The logic was simple. If it could be diced, it could be jellied. Each wobbly slice a culinary surprise, with a texture spectrum ranging from pleasantly squishy to, why is this fighting back? But what exactly is in your dessert? Gelatin, of course, rendered from animal hide, hooves, and bones, simmered until it dissolves into culinary glue. Sugar, flavoring, and just enough preservative to outlast the average summer heatwave. The coloring? Well, that's a roll of the dice. Some dyes were harmless, others not so much. If your lips glow after dessert, congratulations, you've discovered the magic of early food science. No dinner party was complete without a gelatin showpiece. Hostesses pored over recipes for dainty salads, fruit aspics, and perfection jellies, all aspiring to impress and mystify guests. A proper gelatin dessert wiggled with pride, a physical manifestation of confidence and, occasionally, misplaced optimism. Despite all this, people loved their jelly desserts. Children vied for the biggest slice. Adults exchanged mold tips and flavor secrets. There was something undeniably fun about a food that seemed more alive than most houseplants. And if you found a mysterious lump inside? Well, that was just another story for the grandchildren. In time, gelatin desserts lost their spot at the culinary high table. New regulations limited the most dramatic food dyes, and refrigeration made ice cream a safer bet. But for one glorious, jiggly moment, there was nothing more fashionable than a dessert that danced on the plate. So tonight, as you drift towards sleep, remember the lime green towers, the wobbly salads, and the brave souls who dared to ask, if it wiggles, does that mean it's fresh? May your dreams be sweet, your desserts stable, and your dinner guests always slightly impressed, and never too suspicious of what's hiding in the jelly. You sprinkle a little nutmeg on your rice pudding. The problem? It's actually powdered brick with a dash of actual nutmeg if you're lucky. May or may not cause hallucinations. It's 1906, and you're finishing dinner with a classic dessert, rice pudding, custard, or perhaps a dainty slice of cake. No matter the dish, you reach for the spice tin to add a dash of nutmeg, the finishing touch that makes any treat feel fancy. The aroma is warm, the color is inviting, and the taste, well, it's more crunch than spice. You pause. Should nutmeg really sound like gravel? The early 20th century spice market is a gamble of Dickensian proportions. Nutmeg is expensive, so merchants get creative. The nutmeg in your tin might contain a pinch of the real thing, but it's often stretched with cheaper fillers, powdered brick, sawdust, even ground-up coconut shells. It looks right, but it's a culinary lottery every time you season a dish. There are stories of cooks breaking teeth or losing fillings, victims of a spice industry that prizes profit over molars. If you're really unlucky, your nutmeg is laced with something even more exciting: toxic seeds, stale bread, or the infamous nutmeg substitute made from questionable local plants. And if you somehow land on a batch with a high dose of the real stuff, you get a different surprise. Nutmeg's hidden power as a mild hallucinogen. Eat too much and your rice pudding becomes an adventure, though most people's stomachs gave up long before their minds did. Other spices don't fare much better. Black pepper is padded out with dried olive leaves or even bits of charcoal. Cinnamon gets its fire from brick dust or red ochre. Saffron, more valuable than gold, might be bulked up with shredded calendula petals or simply dyed corn silk. Each tin on the spice rack is a relic of hope, trust, and sometimes minor dental trauma. But nutmeg holds a special place in the heart of scandal. For centuries, it was worth its weight in silver, shipped across oceans, locked up in vaults, and guarded by spice merchants who took their secrets to the grave. In the 1900s, though, all bets are off. The rise of mass production and lax regulation means that your grandma's rice pudding might be seasoned with enough creativity to kill her, or, at least, encourage her to take up soft foods. There are occasional outcries. Newspapers publish horror stories. Child hospitalized after eating spiced porridge, or famous chef bites into brick loaf. Regulators wring their hands and promise to inspect, but the wheels of food safety turn slowly. Most families simply accept that some spice tins are for flavor and some are for self-defense. The ads don't help. Labels promise pure, aromatic nutmeg, illustrated with plump, happy nutmeg fruits and smiling chefs. There's always a testimonial from a grandmother who's never tasted better. The truth is, she's probably just relieved to still have her teeth. Eventually, change comes. Food laws tighten, inspectors actually start inspecting, and powdered bricks are retired from the kitchen. Real nutmeg, and only nutmeg, returns to the spice shelf, still pricey, but blessedly non-lethal. So tonight, as you drift off, be grateful for the quiet luxury of honest spices. May your desserts be delicious, your teeth unbroken, and your dreams free from surprise hallucinations. And if you hear a crunch in your pudding, maybe just set the spoon down and call it a night. You spread some margarine on your toast. Except it's not margarine, it's a mix of lard, colored with coal tar, and possibly a touch of axle grease. Tastes like victory. Or defeat. It's breakfast in 1908, and you're craving a bit of luxury, something smooth and creamy to liven up your bread brick. Butter is expensive, practically a status symbol, so you reach for the next best thing. Margarine. The packaging looks promising, showing golden curls of spread and a smiling farm girl who almost certainly never tasted what's inside. You take your knife, carve off a generous slab, and notice the color. It's vivid, almost radioactive, yellow in a way that cows nor nature have ever managed. You spread it on. The texture is somewhere between whipped fat and motor oil. The taste, a blend of faint pork, a hint of salt, and an aftertaste that suggests your breakfast is doubling as a mechanical lubricant. But that's the 1900s margarine promise. If you can't afford butter, you can at least enjoy something that looks like it. Or at least, something that's trying very hard to. Margarine, in the early 20th century, is an industrial marvel, born of the need to stretch animal fats further and save the real butter for those who could afford it. The recipe is simple. Take beef tallow or pork lard, blend it with whatever vegetable oil you can scrounge, churn it until it surrenders, and dye it with the boldest, cheapest yellow color on the market. If you're lucky, the yellow comes from harmless annatto. If you're not, it's coal tar, lead chromate, or whatever pigment the paint shop had on discount. The government isn't quite sure what to make of this new invention. Dairy farmers are furious, calling margarine counterfeit butter and demanding laws to protect their pride and profit. Some states pass regulations forcing margarine to be dyed bright pink, so no one confuses it with the real thing. Others slap taxes on every pound sold. The result? A black market for yellow dye, and kitchens everywhere full of housewives trying to knead color into pale, gloppy fat. If you want flavor, there are options, none reassuring. Some brands boast butter flavoring, a secret blend of extracts and chemicals, while others simply let the lard speak for itself. On the worst days, you get a batch that tastes like last week's stew, or worse, like it's already halfway to becoming soap. But margarine isn't alone in its struggle for respectability. Lard is the kitchen workhorse, slathered on toast, stirred into porridge, and used for frying anything that stands still. Some tins advertise vegetable lard, an ambitious phrase that really means fat plus hope. If you're feeling adventurous, you might find butterine, a mysterious spread somewhere on the evolutionary ladder between butter and axle grease. And then there are the accidents. Stories circulate about margarine batches accidentally spiked with machine lubricants, or lard, that comes with a subtle hint of barnyard. A little grit? Consider it fiber. A hint of rust? That's extra iron. Eventually, the great spread wars subside, food laws tighten, dyes get safer, and margarine evolves into the smooth, perfectly bland spread we know today. Butter comes back too, its flavor unmistakable, its price a little less terrifying. But for a time, the breakfast table was a frontier, and every slice of toast was a risk. So tonight, as you close your eyes and drift towards sleep, give thanks for real butter, honest margarine, and toast that doesn't squeak. May your dreams be creamy, your spreads golden, and your breakfast safe from all things mechanical. You're 8 years old, bouncing off the walls thanks to sugar sticks, syrup, and novelty candies laced with enough caffeine to power a telegraph station. Your parents have regrets. It's 1910 and the concept of sugar rush hasn't been invented yet, at least not as a diagnosis, just as a way of life. Breakfast is a bowl of cereal dusted with extra sugar. Lunch is a slab of bread slathered with molasses. And the snack cabinet overflows with pure glucose in every shape and color. If you're feeling fancy, you can buy a penny candy from the corner store, a stick of taffy longer than your arm, or a jawbreaker big enough to cause a dental crisis. Let's start with the morning routine. Parents heap sugar on everything: cereal, porridge, even the morning egg, if you're especially persistent. Syrups flow like rivers: maple, corn, and a dubious fruit syrup that tastes suspiciously like melted lollipops. For school lunch, your mother tucks in a wedge of syrup cake, a ginger snap the size of your fist, or a slice of sugar bread, white bread, butter, and a blizzard of white crystals. The afternoon brings even more excitement. You run to the corner shop with a coin, knowing you can turn it into a mountain of energy. There are licorice ropes, peppermint sticks, and gumdrops that sparkle in the sunlight. The new rage? Energy tablets and tonics promising stamina for growing boys and girls. No one asks what's in them. Spoiler, it's caffeine, sometimes cocaine, occasionally a dash of heroin if the pharmacist mixed the batch after a long day. Parents watch in awe and slight terror as you and your friends race through the neighborhood, hopping fences, playing stickball, and building elaborate forts powered by nothing but raw sugar and hope. Nap time is a lost cause. By sundown, the energy begins to fade, and what follows is the infamous sugar crash, wailing, fighting over the last gumdrop, and a nap that feels suspiciously like a coma. But wait, there's more. Soda fountains are the final stop, where a nickel buys you a glass of cherry phosphate or lemon fizz, loaded with so much syrup you could stand a spoon in it. Treats for tired children, the advertisements boast. The tired part comes later, after the euphoria and the running in circles. School teachers suffer in silence. The early 1900s classroom is a riot of sticky hands, wild laughter, and paper airplanes that occasionally burst into flame from sheer kinetic energy. Dentists, meanwhile, see a boom in business. and occasionally invest in the local candy shop to secure their future. There's a certain logic to it all. Sugar is cheap, kids are expected to be sturdy, and as far as anyone can tell, energy is a sign of good health. No one worries about diabetes or hyperactivity. The only complaint comes from parents trying to corral their offspring at bedtime when a final burst of marshmallow-fueled inspiration threatens to topple the family lamp. Eventually, the medical world catches up. Sugar gets blamed for everything from wild behavior to bad teeth. And suddenly moderation becomes the new parental motto. Candy gets a little less wild, syrup isn't poured by the cupful, and the playground grows quieter, though never completely calm. So tonight, as you drift into sleep, give thanks for a quieter kitchen and a snack cupboard, less likely to double as a chemistry set. May your dreams be sweet, your teeth unbroken, and your next treat a little less electrifying. The year is 1906, and Upton Sinclair's The Jungle has just ruined everyone's lunch. Suddenly, there are whispers of regulation. The Food and Drug Act is coming, and manufacturers are forced to swap arsenic for slightly less arsenic. Progress. It's the first decade of the 20th century, and dinner has always been a game of chance. Your sausage might contain meat, your milk might not be alive, and your candy could glow in the dark. But now, the public is catching on. Muckraking journalists, angry mothers, and more than a few fainting senators are demanding answers. What exactly are we eating, and why is it occasionally trying to eat us back? The answer arrives in the form of a book. The Jungle, a vivid exposé of the Chicago meatpacking industry. Readers gasp at tales of rats ground into sausage, floors swept straight into lunch, and workers who, let's just say, sometimes made it into the final product. The public loses its collective appetite. Lawmakers clutch their pearls and vow to act, if only so their next sandwich doesn't come with a surprise ingredient. The solution? The Pure Food and Drug Act of 1906. Suddenly, there's a new sheriff in town. The federal government. Inspectors are hired, clipboards are distributed, and factories are told to at least pretend they're cleaning. Food labels must now list ingredients, or at least try. No more mystery meat, the headlines promise, as if such a thing were possible, but change is slow. And food manufacturers are creative. Some simply rename their worst offenders. Arsenic becomes preservative. Borax is rebranded as a mineral supplement. And coal tar dyes are labeled natural colorings with a wink and a nudge. Inspectors, new to the game, sometimes spend more time sampling than regulating. There are loopholes big enough to drive a delivery wagon through, and more than a few factory owners eager to give them a push. Still, the act is a turning point. For the first time, food must be at least theoretically safe to eat. Candy loses its most radioactive glow. Milk gets pasteurized, eventually. Meat is less likely to contain unexpected fingers or tails. Ingredient lists appear, even if they require a magnifying glass and a leap of faith. Consumers rejoice, cautiously. At least now you know what's in your bread, even if you can't pronounce it. The age of secret recipes and proprietary formulas isn't over, but the wildest days are numbered. Food becomes a little less adventurous, a little more predictable, and, most importantly, a little less deadly. It's not a perfect system. Manufacturers still test the boundaries. Some foods get safer, others just get sneakier. The FDA, eventually renamed from its original, slightly less catchy title, grows more powerful and, occasionally, more helpful. Over the decades, food science advances. Home cooks learn to trust their grocery store, at least most of the time. The lunchbox lottery becomes a fond memory rather than a daily hazard. So as you fall asleep tonight, consider the miracle of the modern food label and the quiet comfort of knowing your midnight snack is unlikely to glow, crawl, or fight back. May your dreams be filled with safe ingredients, honest packaging, and gratitude for the brave souls who insisted that food should be food and not a game of chance. You treat yourself to a scoop of strawberry ice cream. Surprise! The red coloring comes from crushed beetles, and the vanilla, that's castoreum, extracted from the back-end glands of beavers. In the 1900s, everything tasted like natural flavors, because no one was asking which part of nature was involved. It's 1911, and you're craving something sweet. Ice cream, perhaps, or a piece of hard candy from the corner store. The flavors are enticing: strawberry, raspberry, vanilla, and an impressive fruit punch that glows with an intensity found nowhere in the orchard. The labels boast all natural, but in the early 1900s, that could mean just about anything. In fact, it's best not to look too closely at the ingredient list, for your peace of mind and your taste buds. Let's start with strawberry. The color is vivid, almost alarming, a shade of red never seen in actual strawberries. That's because it often comes from cochineal, a dye made from crushed bugs. Tiny insects from Central and South America, lovingly harvested, sun-dried, and ground into a powder that makes everything red, from candies to lipsticks. It's perfectly safe, mostly. And hey, at least it's technically organic. If you find a stray leg in your ice cream, that's just a little extra protein. Vanilla, on the other hand, is a true historical adventure. Vanilla beans are expensive, so clever food manufacturers look elsewhere for that signature flavor. Enter castoreum, a substance harvested from the castor sacs of beavers. These small glands, located right next to where you think, produce a secretion that smells uncannily like vanilla. No one's quite sure who the first brave soul was to sniff a beaver and say, "You know, this could be a dessert topping." But in the world of 1900s flavor science, curiosity is always on the menu. Labels call it natural flavoring, which is technically true, if not exactly appetizing. Castoreum finds its way into everything: candies, puddings, cakes, and yes, ice cream. The flavor is rich, a bit musky, and undeniably complex. Most people never know the difference, which is probably for the best. If you told your dinner guests that their dessert was brought to them by the animal kingdom's least glamorous member, you might have more leftovers than usual. Other flavors follow similar logic. Raspberry might be a blend of real fruit and chemical wizardry, colored with coal tar dyes. Lemon gets its zing from citric acid and a hint of natural essence, which could mean lemon, or just something that once met a lemon in a crowded warehouse. Fruit punch is a catch-all. If it's sweet and colorful, it qualifies. Why complicate things with accuracy? This era's approach to flavor is driven by scarcity, science, and a dash of wild optimism. If you can't afford real fruit, you make do. If your vanilla bean harvest fails, you get creative. And if your customer asks too many questions, you just wave the natural banner and move on. It's all about trust, mostly blind, sometimes regrettable, but usually delicious enough that no one complains much. Eventually, regulations catch up. Cochineal gets a fancy name, carmine, and castoreum quietly retreats from the ingredient list, replaced by lab-made vanillin. But for a magical stretch of time, every dessert was a surprise. Every candy, a riddle, and every flavor, an adventure. So tonight, as you drift towards sleep, let your dreams swirl with mystery flavors, bug juice, beaver butt, and all. May your treats be sweet, your labels honest, and your next scoop of vanilla ice cream blissfully unexamined. You sit down for a hearty breakfast, cracking open an egg that's been preserved in a mysterious white coating. Is it shellac, chalk, or just the natural sheen of 3-month-old egg funk? The 1900s answer: all of the above. Pro tip: if it bounces, don't eat it. It's Sunday morning 1903, and you're ready for a classic breakfast: eggs, toast, and possibly a side of hope. You reach for an egg from the kitchen basket, marveling at its glossy finish. The shell is unnaturally shiny, and the color is a dazzling white, far brighter than anything you've ever seen emerge from the coop. You crack it. If you're lucky, it opens with a satisfying snap. If not, you may need a chisel. Preserving eggs in the early 20th century is an art form, part science experiment, part game of roulette. Fresh eggs are a seasonal luxury, abundant in spring and painfully scarce by winter. To bridge the gap, producers and home cooks resort to creative methods. The most popular? Dipping eggs in shellac or paraffin wax, sealing the pores and keeping out air and bacteria. This helps the eggs last for months, if you don't mind a faint aftertaste of candle. Other preservation tricks abound. Some eggs are dusted in chalk or lime powder, giving them a freshly laundered appearance that makes them look more like fine china than food. The chalk absorbs moisture and slows decay, but it also adds a certain crunch to the breakfast table. If your egg scrapes the plate, just call it extra minerals. Health advice is optional. For the more adventurous, there's water glassing, submerging eggs in a solution of sodium silicate. The eggs emerge months later, slimy and slightly rubbery, but, amazingly, still technically edible. If you're lucky, you get a perfect yolk. If you're not, you get a surprise protein shake. But the ultimate thrill is the surprise inside. Eggs of the 1900s are culinary mysteries. You might crack one open to reveal a perfect golden centera, a cloudy, sulfurous liquid that leaps for freedom. Sometimes, a long-lost chick starts to form, a bonus protein source, if you're not squeamish. The eggshell's job is to keep you guessing. And every breakfast is an audition for Fear Factor, Edwardian edition. Let's talk taste. A well-preserved egg might taste almost fresh, with just a whisper of wax or a memory of chalk. An unlucky pick can be sour, metallic, or aggressively aged. Some cooks mask the flavor with heaps of salt and pepper. Others bravely embrace the experience, convinced that a strong egg builds strong character. It's not all bad, though. Eggs are versatile, packed with protein, and, when good, can transform any meal. They're scrambled, boiled, poached, or used in cakes and custards that help disguise whatever flavors preservation may have added. Children collect the prettiest shells, and cooks boast about how long their eggs last, sometimes more proudly than truthfully. Occasionally, someone gets sick, a mild inconvenience, in a world where dinner is always a bit of a gamble. Grandmothers blame weak constitutions, the grocer blames the weather, and everyone else just blames fate. As food safety laws improve and refrigeration becomes common, shellac and chalk go out of style, and eggs return to being mostly, gloriously, just eggs. So as you settle in tonight, grateful for modern expiration dates and carton-fresh breakfasts, may your dreams be golden yolked, your shells crack easily, and your breakfast never need a warning label. Sleep well, and may your next egg never bounce. You're hungry, desperate, and eyeing that box of dog biscuits. Except, in 1902, those were marketed as healthy snacks for children too. Crunchy, full of bone meal and probably some leftover sawdust, they're great for teething, dogs, or just losing the will to snack. It's a long afternoon in 1902. The kitchen cupboard is bare, and your stomach is grumbling louder than a passing locomotive. You search for anything edible, some bread, a heel of cheese, maybe a forgotten potato, but all you find is a large, sturdy tin, Spratt's patent meat, fibrine dog cakes, For dogs and growing children, you blink. That's not a typo. In the early 1900s, the line between pet snacks and people snacks is more suggestion than rule. You open the tin and pull out a biscuit. It's brown, thick, and hard enough to be mistaken for a paving stone. The aroma is faintly meaty, with a hint of bone dust and optimism. You take a cautious nibble. The texture is crunchy, maybe too crunchy. Your teeth rattle, but you soldier on, reminding yourself that children have survived on worse, and dogs seem pretty happy. What's inside this culinary marvel? The recipe is a who's who of 1900s food innovation. Wheat flour, beef fat, powdered bone, and sometimes a pinch of salt. No sugar, no chocolate, no marshmallow swirl, just pure, rugged nutrition, or at least something that won't kill you right away. Manufacturers boast that these biscuits are healthful and strengthening, perfect for building strong teeth and bones. Apparently, they mean it literally. In fact, Sprat's dog biscuits weren't originally for dogs at all. They started as sailors' hardtack, the ultimate travel food, indestructible, calorie, dense, and completely immune to flavor. It wasn't long before clever marketers realized they could rebrand leftovers and byproducts for both dogs and children. Why let a little thing like dignity stand in the way of a tidy profit? You pack a biscuit for your lunch. At school, you swap half with a friend, who breaks it in two with effort and offers you a bite of his vegetable bone cake, a delicacy for anyone willing to risk their molars. Teachers look the other way. Parents, thrilled by the price, declare the biscuits good for growing boys and girls. Dentists, seeing a boom in business, keep quiet and count their earnings. And yet, there's something oddly comforting about these snacks. They fill you up, last forever, and require absolutely no refrigeration. Ideal for a world where a pantry mouse could starve to death waiting for crumbs. The family dog is happy to share. And, in some homes, out-eats the children by a narrow margin. Flavor innovation is slow. Some companies add beef extract for taste, or a dash of cod liver oil for shine. Others throw in bone meal and oat bran, crossing their fingers that no one asks too many questions. If a biscuit is too hard, it can always be dunked in tea or soup, or thrown at a sibling with remarkable force. Eventually, the pet food industry finds its niche, and dog biscuits return to the dogs where they belong. Human snacks get sweeter, softer, and less likely to break household furniture. But for a time, the family biscuit was a staple, equal parts food, challenge, and chew toy. So tonight, as you doze off, be grateful for snacks that don't need a warning label, a chisel, or a cosigner at the dentist's office. May your dreams be crunchy, your treats intended for humans, and your childhood memories always just a little bit softer. You drizzle some homemade French dressing on your lettuce. Tangy, sharp, and oddly reminiscent of a car battery. That's because 1900's vinegar might be laced with sulfuric acid. It preserves your salad, and probably your digestive tract, forever. It's a warm evening in 1904. You're setting the table for supper, proud of your spread, a roast, some grey bread, and, for the grand finale, a bowl of lettuce with a splash of the finest vinegar you could find at the corner store. You pour it carefully over the greens. The scent is robust, a whiff of sourness, a hint of paint thinner, and just the faintest memory of last year's science class. You take a bite. The lettuce is crisp, but the vinegar nearly knocks you out. There's a burn that lingers in your nose and makes your eyes water. Zesty, you declare, mostly to convince yourself. The flavor is somewhere between salad and chemistry experiment, with a sharpness that hints at more than just sour grapes. Welcome to the world of 1900's vinegar, a product so unregulated, creative, and sometimes hazardous, it could double as a household cleaner and a science fair project. Vinegar was, and still is, the soul of every salad. But in a time before food laws had teeth, every bottle was a mystery. Some vinegar came from actual apples or wine, gently fermented over time. But most of what you found at the market was more adventurous. To meet the growing demand for cheap, shelf-stable acidity, manufacturers turned to shortcuts. Instead of natural fermentation, they spiked barrels with sulfuric acid, hydrochloric acid, or whatever else gave that signature tang. Mixed with water, a splash of caramel coloring, and perhaps a drop of fruit essence for plausible deniability, the resulting potion could fool any unsuspecting palate and pickle a cucumber into the next century. For those seeking more sophistication, French dressing was a revelation. It promised a touch of Parisian flair, but often delivered a blend of questionable oil, paprika, vinegar, and sometimes an extra jolt from the chemical cabinet. It was bright, it was bold, and it was basically paint for your salad. Preservatives, too, were wild. A dash of benzoate or salicylic acid kept dressings fresh, even as your tongue tingled with each forkful. Sulfites, borax, and even formaldehyde made guest appearances, no one quite sure if the goal was to flavor, to preserve, or to simply dare the eater to come back for seconds. The real mystery was what exactly you were eating. Labels were creative works of fiction. Pure cider vinegar might be a blend of industrial acid, tap water, and a few apple peels for good measure. Gourmet French dressing could mean anything from olive oil to cottonseed oil to last week's lard, dyed orange and prayed over. And yet, salads persisted. Maybe it was the novelty, maybe the thrill, or maybe just the lack of safer options. Families gathered at the table, jaws clenched, hoping their dressing would only clean the lettuce, not their insides. Grandparents joked that a strong vinegar built character, children just hoped for dessert. Eventually, the food safety movement caught up, and vinegar returned to its roots. Real fermentation, honest labeling, and fewer trips to the apothecary. Dressings, too, settled down, their wildest days fading into culinary legend. So, as you lay down tonight, grateful for dressings that don't double as battery acid, may your salads be crisp, your vinegar authentic, and your dinner table a place of comfort, not chemical warfare. Sleep tight, and dream of flavors you can trust. It's movie night, 1904 style. You grab a bag of fresh popcorn. It's colorful, sweet, and coated with a glaze made from, you guessed it, coal tar dyes and petroleum flavoring. Your tongue is blue, your teeth are green, and your ancestors are sending you a warning in Morse code from beyond. The magic of popcorn is timeless. But in the early 20th century, it's a spectacle. A treat as much about color as about crunch. The popcorn vendor's cart sits on the corner, gleaming in the gaslight, brass polished and kettle bubbling. The air is thick with the scent of toasted corn, melting sugar, and something else, something vaguely industrial. Is that gasoline or just the spirit of innovation? You watch as the vendor shovels hot popcorn into bags, then pours over a rainbow glaze, electric reds, blues, yellows, and greens. Brighter than anything you'd find in nature, or even most art museums. The color doesn't just stick to the kernels. It clings to your hands, your lips, and, if you're not careful, your shirt for the rest of the week. Take a bite. It's sweet, sticky, and strangely chemical. Like eating dessert in a paint store, the flavor is an enthusiastic mystery. Strawberry tastes vaguely like cough syrup. Lemon has a hint of turpentine. And butter is suspiciously floral. That's the magic of coal tar dyes. Byproducts of the same process that colors, textiles, and paints, now generously employed to make your snacks more fun. The FDA hasn't quite caught up yet. And the only warning label you'll see is the look in your mother's eye as you come home with a blue tongue. If you're lucky, there's also kettle corn. Salty, sweet, and every kernel a gamble. Vendors sometimes throw in a dash of whatever sugar substitute or flavoring is at hand, sometimes vanilla, sometimes a mystery syrup left over from the local soda fountain. Sometimes it's just a generous scoop of petroleum jelly for shine. If your popcorn squeaks when you chew, don't worry, just enjoy the extra lubrication. Movie theaters are starting to pop up, and the popcorn boom is in full swing. Children line up for the biggest, brightest bag. Adults pretend it's for the kids, then eat half on the walk home. No one really asks about the colors. It's all part of the show. At home, you try to replicate the treat, heating corn over a fire, melting sugar, and wondering why your kitchen suddenly smells like a railroad yard. The colors are more than just cosmetic. They're a marketing revolution. Coal tar dyes let vendors create a popcorn palette that's impossible to ignore, ensuring every snack time is a minor festival. Parents convince themselves it's just a little color, because in a world of pickled fish and arsenic candy, what's a bit of blue tongue? Of course, sometimes things go too far. A batch comes out with a chemical aftertaste so strong it's legendary. Kids challenge each other to see whose lips stay green the longest. Dentists quietly invest in popcorn carts, certain of future business. Eventually, food safety catches up. The brightest colors fade, replaced by flavors you can actually recognize and dyes that won't alarm the local doctor. Popcorn settles down, content to be just popcorn, yellow, buttery, and only occasionally blue. So tonight, as you settle under your covers, be grateful for snacks that don't double as art supplies. May your popcorn be crisp, your colors honest, and your movie nights delightfully non-toxic. Sweet dreams. And may your tongue return to its natural shade by morning. So tonight, as you settle in with your favorite modern snack, maybe something with an actual expiration date and no hint of uranium, take a quiet moment to appreciate just how far food safety has come. Because you, dear listener, have survived a virtual journey through an era when every bite was a gamble and every meal doubled as a science experiment. The people of the early 1900s were pioneers, brave souls who faced down glowing candy, mystery meats, and sodas with enough stimulants to power a small circus. They lived in a time before ingredient lists, before regulation, before the phrase "may contain traces of absolutely anything" became a warning, and not just a promise. And somehow, they powered through, armed with little more than optimism, cast iron stomachs, and perhaps the occasional stomach pump. As you drift off to sleep, remember the resilience and wild hope it took to eat dinner in 1904. The folks back then didn't just survive their food, they built the foundation for our safer, cleaner, slightly less radioactive snacks today. They were the reason food laws exist. The reason margarine no longer contains axle grease. The reason your marshmallows don't come with a skull and crossbones warning label. So next time you grumble about natural flavors or worry your breakfast bar is a little stale, just be grateful it doesn't glow in the dark. Wiggle unexpectedly, or list industrial cleaner as an ingredient. Maybe, as you drift toward dreamland, whisper a thank you to your ancestors, who braved the era of arsenic candies and borax sausage so you wouldn't have to. History may be bizarre, sometimes terrifying, and always a little gross, but it's also proof that humans are stubborn, inventive, and just a little bit ridiculous. You made it through another night, safe from the dangers of 1900s junk food. Sleep well, dream peacefully, and wake up grateful for your non-radioactive breakfast. Good night.